last word with me, Maria Shakil. Day 4 of the Israel-Hamas war, 700 people killed in Gaza, 1,100 killed in Israel. The count of the injured on both sides is unimaginable. Yet the offensive from both sides continues. Our two colleagues who are reporting from Ashkelon on the Gaza-Israel border were caught in the crossfire. Their hotel was bombarded.
In this bunker, it's all smoke, rocket injustice. We are it has happened. There's
ये इस होटल में हम हैं आज यहाँ पर रॉकेट सीधे यहाँ पे रॉकेट गिरा है और इसके बाद जो है आग लगी है और धुएं की वजह से जो है यहाँ पर सायरन जो है वो भी बजा है। तो हम एक बार देखने की कोशिश करते हैं कि होटल के जिस हिस्से में ये हुआ है वो ये फायर बनाने की कोशिश की जा रही है। ये देखिए ये यहाँ होटल के हिस्से में गिरा है और गाड़ी पे गिरा है। हमारे होटल के पार्किंग की गाड़ी पर अगर नहीं, ये हमारे होटल की पार्किंग है।
This is the parking where the cars were hit. There's a direct. Right now, this has been lit and this car is completely gone now. There is a direct hit on our hotel where we are staying. We came back after the threat and this is what has happened here. Most of the people, the guests here are still in the shelter. There is smoke everywhere.
बार-बार धमकी दी गई थी कि 5 बजे के बाद करेंगे और ठीक 5 बजे के बाद ये हमला हुआ है। हालांकि शहर के और किस हिस्से में क्या हुआ है वो जानकारी बाद में आएगी, लेकिन यहाँ जिस होटल में हम हैं एस्केलॉन में, यहाँ ये एक सीधा डायरेक्ट हिट रॉकेट का जिसमें एक कार जली है। हम बाहर और निकल कर देखने की कोशिश करते हैं कि और कहाँ क्या हुआ है। बंकर से हम निकल रहे हैं। 4 बजने के साथ ही हम बंकर में आ गए थे और जो यहाँ जो भी ठहर रहे हैं, ये देखिए हमारे होटल का सामने का हिस्सा यहाँ रख दिया। ये सामने का हिस्सा फिर से इस बार फिर से सायरन हुआ है और फिर हम लोग पीछे को भाग रहे हैं।
Have gone off again, and there might be more attacks. We have come back into our bunker. We are going out to see how the damage was. This is a direct hit on our hotel.
और सामने के हिस्से में जहाँ हमारी गाड़ी में लगी हुई है और वहाँ पे जाकर ये हुआ और धुआं जो है वो चारों तरफ नजर आ रहा है क्योंकि आग लगी है बाहर और वहाँ से शीशे जो भी टूटे हैं वो भी अंदर आए हैं। तो ये जो एक्चुअल सिचुएशन है वॉर की वो यहाँ हम महसूस कर रहे हैं और उस एक्चुअल सिचुएशन से आपके लिए जानकारी लेकर आ रहे हैं। और जान को खतरा भी हो सकता है, लेकिन ये काम है, काम कर रहे हैं।
This is how it is, and this is happening during the war zone, and maybe this is what we expected. It could have happened anywhere, it has happened right in our hotel.
हम आपको अपडेट करते रहेंगे।
Fortunately, Uma Shankar and Kadambini are safe, but they are holed up in a bunker. Meanwhile, Gaza has been engulfed in complete darkness. This after Israel announced a complete siege yesterday. The UN Secretary General appealed to all sides to allow humanitarian aid to reach Gaza yesterday. But the story on ground is something else. What's heartbreaking is that civilians are dying on both the sides. On the geopolitical stage, the global leaders are picking sides. Prime Minister Narendra Modi today tweeted that his counterpart Netanyahu had dialed him. The two leaders discussed the situation, and Prime Minister Modi reiterated India's support to Israel. But India also has close historic ties with Palestine. With casualties mounting by the minute, Prime Minister Modi's "not an era of war" comment seems to ring true this time too. 4 of the Israel-Hamas War. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu dialing Prime Minister Narendra Modi, updating him on the ongoing situation. Prime Minister Modi reiterated India's firm support to Israel. He also strongly and unequivocally condemned terrorism in all its forms and manifestations.
Israel and India relations are very important. We are two nations that are democratic nations. We are welcoming any attempt by your Prime Minister to mediate or to advance peace. Hamas is a terror organization, but if Modi can make the miracle, we will hold our finger for him.
Palestine's envoy to India has also called on Prime Minister Modi to play the role of a mediator.
India is a friend of both, and India could play a good role as a mediator between both of them. India understood very well the Palestinian cause since the Mahatma Gandhi, and hope they will play that role.
Meanwhile, united support for Israel and a strong condemnation of Hamas, as US, UK, France, Germany and Italy issued a statement after a call between the heads of the states. Woven into the statement was a veiled threat to Iran and the Hezbollah. Our countries will support Israel in its efforts to defend itself and its people against such atrocities. Not a moment for any party hostile to Israel to exploit these attacks too.
But when we say that we stand with Israel, we mean it.
In a precursor to this united show of strength by the West, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin ordered the Ford carrier strike group to sail to the eastern Mediterranean on Sunday to assist Israel. Looking at the other axis, on Tuesday, Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman told Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas that the Gulf Kingdom stands by the Palestinian people, putting a question mark on the normalization deal between Israel and Saudi. Reports suggest that Qatari mediators, in coordination with the US, have held urgent calls with Hamas officials to try and negotiate the release of Israeli women and children held hostage in Gaza, in exchange for the release of Palestinian women and children from Israel's prisons. Turkey's Erdogan is striking a neutral stance in the Gaza conflict. He assured leaders of both Palestine and Israel that Turkey is doing its best for calm to be restored. And the UAE has condemned the Hamas attack, terming it a serious and grave escalation. China, meanwhile, has condemned all violence and attacks on civilians and called a ceasefire. Clearly, the world stands divided on the Israel-Gaza war. Given Prime Minister Modi's not an era of war stand, the big question is, could India play the peacemaker? In New Delhi, this is Maria Shakeen. Today on Last Word, we ask, a world divided over Israel-Hamas war, who will play the peacemaker? Joining me on the show, Gusti Beverman is the member of executive of the Israel National Institution. We have Gideon Levy, author of The Punishment of Gaza. Jabir Patel is the president of India Arab Friendship Foundation, and Ambassador Virendra Gupta, who served in the Indian Embassy in Israel in 1992, is joining me as well. Thank you so much for your time, everyone. Ms. Beverman, beginning with you, the countries are picking sides. Strong statements are coming as well. But solution, the question is, who will stop this war? And can this war be really stopped at all?
Let's say that this time it's completely different. In one day, we have lost over 1,000 civilians in a brutal terror attack by people that doesn't bound to any international rules. For the first time, civilians are paying a very, very high price. So therefore, this is not in the same scale. You cannot look at this at the same scale that you have looked at any other a round of a war or a operation that were before. You can only imagine what does it mean. And this is, again, it's about what it's a massacre. It cannot be looked in a different way. What we went through Shabbat morning, that was a holiday in Israel. People woke up in the morning to a nightmare. People were locked in the room, in the safe room, for over 24 hours with the children at the age of 2, at the age of 4. Some of them were taken out by firing missiles to their door. People penetrated their homes, their privacy. You can only imagine, as a human being, what does it mean to be in your home, and in 1 second, it's not yours anymore. People were taken out from their shelters and shot in front of their children. The children were shot. Elderly were taken in captivity. This is not an equation that any human being can do this time about what is happening in Israel. So if you ask us, the Israelis that are peace seekers, one of the casualties that was murdered Shabbat morning was the mayor of the Sha'ar Negev region in the Gaza Strip. He was the one with the vision to develop an industry that will bring together Palestinians and Israelis for a better future for everyone. He was the first to be killed. His son was wounded. They cannot find him. His mother-in-law was shot in the back, a woman in her 70s. You can only imagine what a nightmare Israel is living today. So it's not a question. The Hamas is exactly like ISIS. They are an army. They are not a liberation movement. They seek to kill as many of Israelis as they can.
Okay, Gideon, come in on this. The Qataris are trying to mediate. In fact, Qatar's premier did speak to Palestinian president as well to try and ensure that all those who have been held hostage, that they can be released in exchange of the women, Palestinian women who are in various jails in Israel. Is there a possible beginning of that solution?
No, unfortunately not, because maybe there will be a solution for the women and children, the hostages, but it cannot stop now, because Israel will not stop now, because Israel feels humiliated, feels beaten, feels that it needs to do something. The problem is that those operations, and many Palestinians are going to pay in their lives in the coming days, those operations lead to nowhere. Even if they are justified, they don't serve any purpose, nothing. We saw it so many times in the past, again and again, and again and again, Israel is using the same strategy, namely to take revenge, to punish, to promise the Israelis that from now on Hamas will be beaten, but Hamas might be beaten, but the idea that Gaza deserves freedom, this idea will not be beaten. And Gaza is the biggest prison in the world, was in the last 17 years the biggest prison in the world, and will continue to be the biggest prison. And as long as this continues, no solution will be found.
Okay, so you're saying that no solution will be found. Jabir Patel, the role that is being played by various countries in the Middle East. There has been a revisiting of the stand by Mohammed bin Salman, who is now standing with Palestinians. We have seen how various countries are taking their position. For example, even Turkey has come out in a surprise way, where they have chosen to take a more neutral or objective view.
Yes, first of all, I want to condemn both the attack on both the countries, Israel and Palestine. And we are now all countries are coming up for the peace talks, because it should be taken before, when since 50 years the Palestinian people are suffering with this attack, and the government, the people of who is the powerful countries in the world, not taking any actions. How many Palestinians have been killed, and they have came to the position of the Palestinian land, and they have acquired the lands of the Palestinians. When the peace talk will come, the big tycoons who is showing that they're the NATO powers in the world, like United States, Saudi Arabia, and India. Also, one of the big rules should come from India. The Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Bhai Modi, should come interfere and don't think that Netanyahu is not only a friend, but Palestine, the relation between India and Palestine is not, no, it's near 1942, nearly 1950, our relations with Palestine is like one country. And they should also see that lot of attacks have been taken place on Palestine. What is the main role of the people who want to come for the peace talks? They should come by clear hands, and they can come and negotiate with the Palestine and Israel.
The view here is, Ms. Beverman, before I bring in Ambassador Virendra Gupta, that there has to be some kind of, because it's Israel's civilians have been hit, they have to take revenge, and thereafter there can be any talks.
I didn't speak about revenge. I spoke about something different.
Ma'am, please unmute yourself.
I didn't speak about revenge. You didn't hear me about revenge. I was saying about our right to protect ourselves, our civilians. What was brutally this time broken and penetrated by brutal people with one aim, to kill us, to kill as many of us. So I'm not speaking about revenge. I'm speaking about how we can keep this region and Israel people safe of the cruelty of the Hamas that is shown time after time. This is the main aim that we have today. How we make this region safe. We were looking and seeking to for any kind of peace with the Palestinians. They work in Israel. There are gates for them to come to Israel to make their living. They took advantage of that, of all the intelligence, and attacked us in a brutal way. So no, you didn't hear me speaking about revenge. Okay. Yes, you can hear me speaking about how we ensure the lives of civilians that want to live in peace in Israel.
Okay,
this is what we are looking for.
So let's look at what is the solution, because the world is now increasingly getting divided. Ambassador Virendra Gupta, you know, various countries have taken their position, just as it happened in the ongoing war, which is still continuing between Russia and Ukraine. An Indian Prime Minister then had said that this is not an era of war. He is clearly hinting at the same right now. The question is, with the Middle East being completely, the Arab world being divided again, because if you look at the stand of various countries, UAE saying that Hamas attack on Israel is serious, grave escalation. Saudi Crown Prince is affirming his support for Palestinian rights. So because the world is taking sides, there has to be someone to bring the two sides on a talking table for the dialogue.
The blame lies on both sides. Firstly, it is a matter of grave concern. A lot of lives have been lost, including the lives of civilians, children, old people. And I think there have been casualties on both sides, very heavy casualties. We look upon it as a brutal terrorist attack. And you know India's position on terrorism is uncompromising, which is what Prime Minister has alluded to. But having said that, Israel has also undertaken retaliatory strikes, which has resulted in killing of hundreds of civilians. The civilian infrastructure has been targeted. So I think, you know, in the middle of all of this, I think one has to look at the long-term issue, which is that of Palestinian dignity and the Palestinian right to self-determination, an independent state. And until such time as Israel agrees to give them what is their aspiration, and until such time as the international community helps broker a peace deal, I think these kind of things will continue to happen. You know, there have been, I'm very worried at the escalating cycle of violence. You know, and I think Israel must also refrain from giving them any provocation. You all are aware that only last week, thousands of ultra-radical people marched on to the Al-Aqsa compound. And I think the images, when you see an Israeli minister leading the march, I think it doesn't give great degree of confidence.
Gideon,
so I think one has to look
take
at
this thought forward. You know, because of course the sentiments are high because of the number of casualties. But then if this is the imagery that we are seeing, then of course it will only get worse.
You know, I'm very disappointed. You know, when I was in Israel in '92 to open the Indian embassy, that was a very good time. The peace process was going on. Prime Minister Rabin was there. Shimon Peres was there. And I think the whole world was looking at a possible final solution when Palestinians could live alongside Israel.
We have really come to the end of this discussion, Ambassador Virendra Gupta. Thank you so much. Gideon, final thought to you, please. Go ahead.
Yeah, we have to remember that in the last 17 years, Gaza is a cage. Gaza is the biggest open prison in the world. 2 million people living in impossible and inhuman and illegal and criminal conditions. That's the base. This does not justify barbaric operations like we saw on Saturday in the south of Israel, but we cannot ignore the fact that it all starts there, in the fact that Israel is putting an illegal and criminal siege over 2 million people. Most of them, by the way, innocent people.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, Ms. Beverman, Gideon Levy, Jabir Patel, and Ambassador Virendra Gupta. Joining me from Jerusalem is the Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem, Fleur Hassan Nahum. Ma'am, thank you so much. It is a developing situation. Reports are coming in every hour. Ms. Nahum, could you give us a sense of what is the situation on ground at this moment?
Well, you know, we've spent 3 days in shock and trauma about this surprise attack that nobody saw coming, about the quantity of the injured, of the dead, of the captured, which is completely unprecedented. And so I feel that in the last 24 hours, Israel has kind of gathered its resolve to fight back. We see an incredible amount of mobilization, social mobilization of people in all the different cities to help the soldiers, to help the bereaved, to help the people whose families are missing. And of course, we see now the military retaliation, which of course has had to take a different color because of the 130, we believe, captured hostages in Gaza.
Are we heading into a long-drawn war? Because there were reports suggesting that Benjamin Netanyahu had a chat or a conversation with US President Joe Biden in which he said that Israel has no option but to go inside Gaza.
Look, I don't believe that this is a war that can be fought from the air alone, especially because we have those hostages there. And I do believe this is not, you know, in the last few years, we've gotten used to these short wars with Gaza. This is of a different scale. The devastation that they've caused us is of a different scale. And so this is not going to be a war that is going to last a week. This is going to be a long, protracted war and hopefully lead to the complete dismantlement of the terrorist infrastructure, which is going to be difficult because the Hamas are the long arm of Iran. They are a genocidal regime wanting to put the world back 500 years. And this is what we're dealing with here. Hamas is ISIS, Hamas is Iran, and all of their human rights violations that they've perpetrated over the last so many years that we know. This is what we are going to be, this is what our hostages are going through right now.